Okay, so I start with a lot of tri-tip that is cubed in about 1 inch or a little bit bigger cubes, and it's salted with sea salt and pepper. And I'm going to take that meat and I'm going to flour it first in flour that has, again, more sea salt and black pepper and white pepper in it. So we're just going to take that and coat it and then shake off the excess in your hand, and we're going to brown it in a skillet, not crowding it in that. So we got that meat browning and not being crowded in that pan. You don't have to cook it through. All you want is that nice brown color on the outside. So this is what we're going for, is to get that nice hard crust on the outside. And it's browned and working in batch. Okay, now we got our mountain of meat, and it's all resting there on the plate. And we have our large stock pot here that all the magic's going to happen in. And we have our onions that are cut into large chunks so they don't disappear when you go to cook them. Take our original pan that we cooked the meat in, and we're not going to throw that away, but we're going to add a little bit of olive oil to that, and we're going to use that to saute the onions in. We're going to take that, we're going to dump it in the stock pot. We don't want to throw all those flavor bits out. So the onions are in there, and you can see they're in big chunks. We're going to add a little bit of salt and pepper to that just to let them sweat out a little bit. And then we're going to cook those for just a minute, and then we're going to add the mushrooms. Okay, at this point we have our crimini mushrooms that are cut up. I strongly recommend using the crimini rather than the white mushroom because it has more of a portobello flavor, and it's also the cheapest mushroom in the mushroom section, and it has that nutty, earthy mushroom flavor that you're really going for. We're going to add that to the onions once the onions have cooked just for a minute, because we want those to brown up in that same mixture that we have here. It has a little bit of that beef browning in there. Okay, so we got the criminis in there, and we've added a little tiny bit more salt and white pepper and black pepper to that, because we're building the flavor in layers, and so you have to make sure that each layer has flavor to it, and it helps the mechanics of cooking, helps sweat it out a little bit, having that salt in there. Also at this time we've added the Italian seasonings, which is essentially thyme, rosemary, basil, and oregano in there. The key thing to remember when cooking any kind of stew is big chunks. You don't want stuff in little pieces or it'll just disappear. And same thing with the meat, same thing with all the vegetables except for the garlic. Okay, now that's cooking, we're going to consider our garlic, which you always, when you cut that up, you always smash it first and then dice it, and that helps to release all the flavors in there when you stick it in there. But what we're going for is to get some caramelization going on that before we put the garlic in. Otherwise, you don't want to try and caramelize after you put garlic in, because the garlic will burn and it'll ruin it. So you don't ever want to burn your garlic. Another side note is don't throw away your flour, your seasoned flour that you browned your meat in. You're going to use that if you need to make a roux. Okay, so we just added the garlic, and we're not going to cook that for too long before we put the meat in. That looks about right. And we're going to deglaze the bottom before we put the meat in, with some red wine. And that'll help to get the brown bits off the bottom that have crusted. Dump the meat in, and all the juice is on the plate, because only a fool would throw that away. Now we're going to make ourselves our broth by adding in 3 tablespoons of the only thing you should ever get, better than bouillon. And we're actually going to increase the volume in this after I get this dissolved, because you don't want to be chasing around chunks of stuff. So I'll make this about... So to this this broth that we're going to stew the meat in for about an hour so it gets fork tender, I've added can of tomato sauce, mostly a bottle of wine, half a bottle of wine, In addition, I also use not only that liquid smoke, which is mesquite, but I also use a little tiny bit more of the Wright's hickory. Hickory can be a little bit overpowering, so I use a little bit less of that than I do the other one. And some Worcestershire sauce to that original beef bouillon base, and that's going to simmer in there with additional black pepper and white pepper and no salt, because it's salty enough and it's actually so damn good it'll make you cry just the way. Okay, so it's been cooking for a bit, and I just added another whole entire clove of garlic because I'm crazy. And now I've got flat leaf Italian parsley and my celery. And the difference between this and cooking Cajun or Louisiana style is we don't want the celery and the greens to cook with the onion and garlic, or if you're cooking Louisiana style bell pepper, we want that to be a tad bit more fresher, and so we're going to add that after about 30 minutes of cooking with the meat and the broth, which has been simmering in here, and it looks great with another 2 or 3 cups of wine in there. Alright, now so this has been cooking for about 2 hours. It's time to add my carrots, just because we're trying to be healthy. Otherwise I just eat the meat. So I'm going to throw that in there. And it's been, can't see that. Okay, so I kind of skipped the step where I cut up the Yukon Golds, but I didn't peel them. And carrots have been in there for like 20 minutes, so they're starting to soften up. You don't want to cook the Yukon Golds too much, or they'll turn into a paste. So it's better that you kind of cook these for about 40 minutes, 30-40 minutes, and then you're done. So everything's been added, and you can see that I got pretty much the ratio of meat to vegetables that you want. There's a lot of juice in there, but that's going to reduce down and thicken with the potatoes. So we'll let that cook down, reduce, and then we'll get the final product here in about 2 hours.